It's funny how nightmares and love stories often start the same way, with a noise in the dark that you swear you imagined. The first night he slipped in, I thought I was dreaming. The second night, I convinced myself it was just an accident. By the third, I wasn't sure if I was terrified or secretly waiting for it. We were in small-town Illinois, the kind of place where the biggest scandal was whether the high school football team could survive without its star quarterback. That quarterback happened to be him, Ethan Calloway, my best friend, my next-door neighbor, and, apparently, the boy who thought my bedroom window was a revolving door. I remember that first time clearly. The creak of the wooden frame, the chill of the midnight air, and the weight of him sitting at the edge of my bed like he belonged there. He didn't say much. He never did. Just stared at the floor, ran a hand through his blonde hair, and muttered something about not being able to sleep. I didn't press. That's what you do when you love someone who doesn't know it yet. You let them come, even when it feels like it's breaking you. Ethan wasn't the type of guy who got lost. He was the guy who made maps in other people's lives, who drew constellations out of nothing but Friday night lights and loud laughter. But in those nights, when he sat in my room in silence, he looked like a boy stranded at sea, afraid of drowning and afraid of swimming too. The thing is, I had been drowning for years, drowning in him. Maybe that's why I never stopped him. By day, we played our roles. He was the golden boy, everyone's dream, the kind of guy teachers pretended not to notice when he fell asleep in class because they wanted to be the one who said they taught Ethan Calloway. I was just Noah Pierce, the quiet kid who sketched in the margins of his notebooks and pretended not to notice how the world revolved around his best friend. But at night, the world shrank into the four corners of my bedroom, into whispers neither of us dared to admit were too intimate, too raw. Sometimes he'd lie on the floor while I sat on the bed, and we'd talk about nothing, movies, the future, how much he hated the pressure of being everyone's hero. Other times, he wouldn't talk at all, just fall asleep on the carpet like it was the only place that made sense. And every night, I wondered why me? The truth was, Ethan had a girlfriend, Madison. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect future. The kind of girl you expect next to a boy like him. He looked at her in the hallways the way I looked at him, like she was the sun and he didn't know how to live without her. So why was he here, in my room? His shadow painted across my walls by the moon. The nights became routine, dangerous in their comfort. I stopped locking my window. I started leaving an extra blanket on the floor. I memorized the sound of his footsteps on the creaking boards. And deep down, I knew I was setting myself up for heartbreak. One night, though, everything cracked. He came in later than usual, his shirt damp with sweat, his knuckles red like he'd been in a fight. I sat up, startled, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there, chest rising and falling like he'd sprinted the whole way here. His eyes were wild, lost, and before I could ask, he collapsed onto the floor, clutching the blanket like it was a lifeline. "Ethan, what happened?" I whispered, my voice shaking. He shook his head, face buried in his arms. "Just don't ask. Please, Noah." I wanted to reach for him. I wanted to touch his hand, to let him know he wasn't alone. But I didn't, because that's the cruel thing about loving your best friend. You learn the art of restraint. Hours passed, silence heavy between us, until his voice broke through the dark. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" he asked, his voice cracking in a way that made my chest ache. "All the time," I admitted. He lifted his head then, and for the first time his eyes really found mine. There was something raw in them, something that stripped me bare. It scared me because I saw myself reflected back. That night he didn't fall asleep on the floor. He climbed into my bed. We didn't kiss. We didn't even touch. We just lay there, the warmth of his body beside mine, his breath steadying against the silence. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like maybe, just maybe, he was reaching for me too. But morning always ruins things. By sunrise, he was gone, leaving nothing but the faint smell of his cologne on my pillow. By lunchtime, he was laughing with Madison, spinning her around in the hallway like the world was perfect and uncomplicated. I watched from the sidelines, invisible as always, and told myself that night was nothing but a mistake. Except it wasn't, because he kept coming back. And each time, the line between friendship and something else blurred a little more. One night he asked me, "Do you ever wonder what people would say if they knew? If they saw us like this?" I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "They'd probably say you're in the wrong room." He laughed, but it was hollow, like he knew it wasn't really a joke. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't know, was that every secret has an expiration date. And ours was about to run out. Secrets never stay hidden in small towns. Not when people are bored enough to notice the way your best friend looks at you, or how his truck always seems to be parked too close to your driveway after midnight. It all unraveled faster than I could hold it together. The night it happened, Ethan had stayed longer than usual. He sat at my desk chair, spinning slowly, staring at me like he was memorizing the curve of my face. I sat cross-legged on the bed, sketchbook open but blank, because how do you draw something that feels too alive? "I think I'm going to break up with Madison," he said suddenly, his voice flat but sharp enough to cut through the quiet. I froze. My pencil dropped. What? She deserves someone who actually wants her. And I. His eyes flicked to me, then away. I can't keep lying. My heart thundered so loud I thought he could hear it. "Ethan, you can't just," but the words never finished, because the window slammed open and a flashlight beam cut through the dark. It was her. Madison. Her face was pale, twisted in hurt. She had followed him, maybe for weeks, maybe just tonight, I never asked. But in that moment, all three of us were caught in the kind of truth you can't bury again. "You son of a bitch," she whispered, her voice breaking. "All those nights you were here?" Ethan stood, panic flashing across his features. "Madison, wait. It's not. Don't you dare," she snapped, her voice trembling but fierce. "Don't you dare tell me it's not what it looks like. I'm not stupid." And then she was gone, leaving nothing but the echo of her footsteps and the wreckage of everything we'd built in secret. Ethan turned to me, his hands shaking. "Noah, but I couldn't bear it. The guilt, the fear, the ache of knowing the world was about to split open." "Just go," I said, my throat raw. "Please, Ethan, just go." For the first time, he didn't argue. He climbed out the window and disappeared into the night. The fallout was brutal. Rumors spread like wildfire. The golden boy quarterback sneaking into another boy's room. It was scandal too delicious for small-town Illinois to resist. I was called names in the hallway, shoved into lockers, left notes that made my stomach twist. Ethan tried to protect me, but he was unraveling too, benched from games, friends turning cold, Madison's heartbreak echoing through every whispered conversation. And worst of all, he stopped coming to my room. Nights became unbearable again. The silence pressed heavy, cruel. I told myself it was better this way, that I had been a fool to believe in something fragile and reckless. But every time I looked at the empty spot on my floor, I ached for him. Weeks passed. Winter came, burying the town in snow. And then, one night, there was another noise at my window. I almost didn't open it. Almost let him freeze out there, a ghost of what we used to be. But when I saw his face, eyes red, breath clouding in the cold, I couldn't stop myself. He climbed in like he used to, but this time he didn't sit on the floor. He stood in front of me, shaking, and said the words I never thought I'd hear. "I love you." It wasn't neat or romantic. His voice cracked, his hands trembled, and he looked like a boy on the edge of breaking. But it was real, and it was enough. "I tried to stop," he whispered. "I tried to be what everyone wanted. But every night I ended up here, with you, because this is where I belong." Tears stung my eyes. "Ethan," he stepped closer. So close I could feel his warmth, his fear, his hope. "If you don't want me, tell me now, and I'll go. But if you've been waiting like I have, then please, don't let me leave again." Couldn't hold back anymore. Years of restraint, of silence, of aching, crashed in a single moment. I grabbed his hand, pulled him down, and kissed him. It wasn't perfect. It was desperate and messy and tasted like salt from our tears. But it was ours. And in that kiss, I finally understood love doesn't always wait for permission. Sometimes it crashes through your window in the middle of the night and refuses to leave. The weeks after weren't easy. We faced glares, whispers, the weight of a town that wanted us to hide. But we didn't. Not anymore. Ethan walked beside me in the halls, his hand brushing mine, daring anyone to say a word. Madison avoided us, and I couldn't blame her. But one afternoon, she found me by the bleachers. Her eyes were still sad, but softer now. "Take care of him," she said simply. "I will," I promised. And I meant it. Ethan and I learned to build a world in peace in late-night drives where no one could see us, in whispered jokes that carried more love than the loudest declarations, in the quiet certainty that we had chosen each other despite everything. Spring came, the snow melted, and one night, lying in my bed with his arm around me, Ethan whispered, "Remember when you asked why I kept coming to your room?" "Yeah," I murmured, half asleep. He pressed a kiss to my hair. "Because it was the only place I ever felt like myself. Because it was you." I smiled into the dark, heart full in a way I never thought possible. For years, I thought love would drown me. But with him, I realized it was the thing keeping me afloat all along. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.